recently released report on social impact bonds and whether or not they will achieve measurable social benefit for our society. The report has been put together by Thomas Scrimgeour from the Maxim Institute. He joins us now. Thomas, kia ora.
G'day, Andrew. Thanks for having me.
First up, there'll be people going social impact bonds, and then they'll be pretending to know what that is. Explain this to us in layman terms. What exactly are social impact bonds in the broadest sense?
So what we're talking about with a social impact bond is a way to fund and deliver social services. And so the way to kind of understand it is that there are three parties. There is the government, who is ultimately the purchaser of outcomes. There are service providers, charities, or social services that deliver services, interventions. And then with a social impact bond is what makes it unique is that there are also investors, third-party funders who put money in upfront. And then what happens is if the intervention achieves good things, then the government pays out. So the government doesn't put any money in upfront, but funds for positive outcomes if success is achieved.
I mean, this is a wonderful idea. Because it kind of pushes against this philosophy which says, oh gosh, we've got all these problems in New Zealand society, the government should do something about that. This is a way of people literally being able to put their money where their mouth is and to invest in programs that work and make a tangible difference. And that's a key part of it as well. This needs to be measurable. There needs to be a way of being able to tell whether or not this program is successful or not in real terms.
Absolutely. And it really, I guess, forces people to demonstrate what programs they're confident will work, because it's very easy for us to identify problems in our communities. We all, agree on a lot of the problems in terms of crime or education or employment. But there are a range of ways people want to address this. And governments traditionally have had to choose. They say, we think this is the best way to do it.
Yep.
But a social impact bond decentralizes that decision about what people think will work. And then it allows communities to draw on their own knowledge about the situation to really target what they think is going to be the most effective intervention.
And I'm sure it also works for the government. Times are tough, etc. So they tell us, and is evident in our economy at the moment. So less risk for the government in some ways. It's almost like they'll bet on the horse if it wins. Do you know what I'm saying? No money down until we get the result on this one.
Absolutely. And I think the risk element is the most important thing about a social impact bond, because ultimately the goal is for interventions to succeed.
Yep.
And so if they succeed, the government will spend money. So it's less about a cost-cutting measure as opposed to getting better outcomes for the spending we do. And so I really like that analogy. Betting on the horse that has already won.
Yeah.
The government gets, I guess, knowledge about what works before they have to sort of shell out the money.
Is this a new idea, or is this something which has been underway in our society or perhaps overseas for a while? Are there examples of this working well?
Yeah, so it is relatively new in the scheme of policy ideas. The first trial globally began in 2010 in the UK. And New Zealand has had a few brief experiments with it under the previous national government, going back to sort of 2016. Bill English was trying to set them up.
Yep.
And so we set up a couple of trials that ran through. One was a mental health social impact bond, trying to get people into employment. And then the other was working with young people at risk of offending. And particularly that one with young people at risk of offending was run with Genesis Youth Trust in South Auckland.
Yep.
And so that ran for 6 years. It was incredibly successful. Offending rates for those young people who completed the program were 30% lower than the baseline. And when you're kind of measuring social value for every dollar spent, it was $9 of social value for every dollar put into the program. So overall, it was a big success.
Yeah, and as you say, no risk up front for the government in that regard. I mean, this obviously sounds like a winner. If you have that on one side and boot camps on the other, where's the better bang for the buck? It sounds like exactly the sort of thing that the government should invest in. However, it's not quite as of a shiny bauble as boot camps. What's been the current government's response to this program? Is it locked in? Is it policy now?
So in the last election campaign, National made some sort of minor noises about social impact bonds. A few people on the campaign trail kind of expressed a desire to look into it more.
Yep.
And they have established the Social Investment Agency, and that does similar type stuff in terms of it does a lot of the analysis that could be used for a social impact bond. But they haven't really committed to either social impact bonds as a specific structure or even outcomes-based contracts where you pay for results. So they've kind of taken half a step towards what could be really transformational and gone no further.
Yep.
And so when we think about Genesis Youth Trust, they completed their bond. It was a huge success. And they haven't had a continuity of government funding since. And that's put them in a tough position. So the government has expressed some good intentions, but haven't made a lot of moves in this space yet.
But hey, we're in the election cycle. This is exactly the sort of thing that perhaps the current government could say, this sounds like not only a winner socially, but also fiscally, and we might even get some votes out of this one. Do you foresee or perhaps hope that this will be a policy which is discussed by various parties heading to the election?
I'm not really one to make huge amounts of predictions because that's a pretty hard game about trying to figure out what politicians will do. But certainly that's our hope. We think outcomes-based contracts and social impact bonds are something that could get interest from a range of different political parties across the spectrum. It doesn't kind of sit neatly in one sort of political ideological box, but as a set of tools and a way of delivering social services that heaps of people could get agreement on. So we are hoping that our work with the paper and also just ongoing conversations in election will really generate interest in outcomes-based contracts and finding better ways to spend our money on social services.
Part of the challenge for this, though, is how we measure social impact. And this is, I mean, in any area, there's some things that are tangible. Less people committed crime. Yep, we can tick that box. More people got access to food and food insecurity. Yep, we can tick that box. I suppose that the concern that I have, the challenge that I have, is what ideology is measuring social impact. And that may change from one government to the next. As you say, it was started under the previous national government, wasn't really picked up when Labour was leading the government, and now it's back in the mix. If this is something which changes every time we change government, it's not really sustainable either for the investors or for the social agencies.
You're certainly identifying an interesting challenge in policy, and I think there will always be disagreements about the types of things governments should fund. I guess our hope with the social impact, social investment approach is that there is a core of things that everyone can agree on is good to fund, and funding it in a certain way. And then where there is disagreement, that is where the debate and the flexibility occurs. So for things like reducing reoffending rates, for helping people find pathways into employment, for education. These are things where there is a broad political agreement across the spectrum. And so if we can use the new and improved data systems we have created over the past decade, and also outcomes-based contracts, really pushing social services to measure and scale what works, I think we can get cross-party consensus and something that endures.
Although you can understand how ideological views such as, okay, we'll measure social impact based on the environment or based on whether or not people manage to successfully transition their gender, that there may be people who see this as social investment, but not necessarily the sort of thing that would have cross-party support. Having said that, though, I suppose the checks and balances are you also need people to fund these programs. You also need the investors to get on board for this one. It's not just one government ideology or another. You need to get people financially committed to this as well, right?
Yeah, so there are kind of two things in there about how social impact investing can really shape government policy where there is agreement. So as you mentioned there, it is investors who back programs who have to make a judgment about what they think will work. But where social impact bonds and outcomes-based contracting are really powerful is where they are interventions that have a clear cost savings down the line for government.
Yep.
So why is crime recidivism such a common one for these sort of contracts? It's because imprisoning people, convicting them of crimes is incredibly expensive. So if we can prevent them from committing those crimes in the first place, there are clear cost savings to government down the line. not because they're not spending money on people, but because they don't have to imprison them, and so they are in employment. And so crime, education, employment, those are the main areas in which social impact bonds have a really, really strong promise.
Where to from here, I suppose? You've written a paper and you make a compelling case in this regard. There is an optimism, a hope from you that that the various political parties may engage in this. Do you see an obvious next step for this type of idea, Thomas?
Our next step is to try and continue connecting with people in the field and pushing for the change in contract structure. Because really there are so many organizations in our communities doing great work. Depending on where listeners are in the country, they will know organizations that are local to them that are doing really wonderful things and often are more flexible, more responsive, know what's happening on the ground far better than central government services. So what we're trying to do is continue a conversation about how do we devolve services to the front line, empower those people who are doing great work, and really give them the freedom to do what they do best. Because the aspiration behind talking about social impact bonds isn't an enthusiasm about arcane contracting structures.
No.
It's an enthusiasm about the great work that community organizations do. So we are wanting to empower them, support them, and generate a better conversation about how we can do good in our communities.
I mean, it's not just about the money, it's about the impact that it has on our society, but it's also about the money and for people who value positive impact in society and wanting to invest into that and also get a return on their investment if it is successful. And you never know, maybe the government will also save money on contractors and commissioning agencies and consultants and all those other people who are currently making some of those decisions about where the government should spend its money. Thomas, this is a challenging paper. Thank you for the work and the research that you've done on this one. We certainly hope it gets some attention and some traction as we head into the election year. Thanks for what you do at Maxim. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Andrew.
Very much for joining us in the REMA studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.